Welcome back to Bear Download on ChicagoTribune.com. I'm Dan Wiederer in Bourbonnais, joined by Rich Campbell.
Also in Bourbonnais.
Yes, we're entering the first weekend of Bears training camp down here, and we've heard a lot about leadership with this team, whether it means from the top and the coaching staff, whether it means within from the players. That word has been a buzzword through the first 3 days here. We've been trying to translate exactly what it means and how much of it is significant to a team on the rebuild. Obviously, in the early stages of camp, you hear all about how strong the camaraderie is, how renewed the energy is. Until you get in the season, you really don't know what you have. What do you make of where the Bears are leadership?
Yeah, it's a tricky conversation because I think as we saw last year, number one, leadership can only take you so far. And number two, the Bears didn't have enough of it when they needed it. And so as the Bears rebuild here under John Fox, I think the leadership starts with him. Obviously, the head coach sets the tone. But even John Fox said this on Thursday, that coaches coach, players play. And at some point, coaches can only do so much. It's the players out there that are determining the outcome here. And you look at this Bears roster, and there are a lot of candidates to assume these leadership roles, whether on the defensive side, you're talking about a player like Jared Allen, who has a track record of being a professional, producing in games. Antrell Roll signed as a free agent from the Giants, where he was known as a good locker room guy. On the offensive side of the ball, Kyle Long emerging in his third year after 2 Pro Bowl bursts. There are some players who do set good examples, but I think overall, as you talk to enough players and you watch the league long enough, leaders are made by guys who produce in games. And as you look at the Bears, and coming off a 5-win season, let's start with Jay Cutler. Has not produced well enough consistently to match the type of leadership, persona or presence needed from the quarterback.
Well, no question. And I think what you hear from players as well is that you don't need to be this sort of puffy-chested rah-rah guy who gives a ton of fiery pep talks to the team to become a leader. But you have to be doing things the right way. You have to be genuinely invested in the guys around you. And it can't be a show. And I think in the past we've seen that from certain players.
Yes.
We won't name names here today.
No, we should name names because I think the subtext to this conversation is that Brandon Marshall is no longer with the team. And when we heard earlier this week Kyle Long talk about some of the walls have come down inside the locker room here, we know Kyle has been on the record before expressing his respect and care for Brandon Marshall. But it's an impossible subtext to ignore, and obviously Ryan Pace and John Fox thought enough of Marshall's off-field influence to trade him for very little return.
Well, you mentioned Kyle Long, and that's another interesting name to bring up because this is a guy who showed up here 2 years ago as a very raw rookie with a lot to prove. He's here in year 3 as a 2-time Pro Bowler, a vocal guy, a guy whose teammates really respect him, and now he has a chance to take another couple steps forward into a key leadership role if he wants it.
Yeah, especially because he's really easy to get along with. And I think everyone in Chicago who follows this team's coverage looks at Kyle whenever he talks and can understand that he's an affable guy. He's easy to talk to. He's very outgoing. Remember 2 years ago, when his rookie year, he wouldn't shut up. He was like breaking all the unwritten rookie rules about how much he was chatting. And so now that he's got experience to go along with that personality, it'll be really interesting to see how he evolves in that leadership area.
Again, we can take a pulse on this throughout training camp, throughout the preseason, until we get into the regular season and real results start to have real impact on the stakes of this team. We won't really know how sturdy this leadership is. It's certainly worth monitoring.